One of the best names in the movie business as a director is none other than Sam Peckinpah. Sitting next to me this morning, next to Sam, is Nick Behnen, and together they have formed a company called Behnen, Peckinpah and Associates. Nick, I'll start with you. Does it have to do with the motion picture business?
Yes, it does, Dennis. And Sam's here looking at the World Series of Poker and talking to Benny Binion about some of the legendary stories about gambling in the South and the Southwest, and what it was like in Texas during his period, and all through that part of poker history right on up to today.
So that concept will be put into a motion picture form for television or for the theater?
For the theater.
Good. Nice to hear that, Sam. There's a big difference, isn't there?
I think this is potentially a widescreen story.
Well, personally, nothing compares to the widescreen, the great silver screen, and I am one of your great fans. I know you have many. You know, when you consider a lifetime of movies that you go to, and a few stand out in your mind, and for me, Wild Bunch, Straw Dogs are just two that have always stood out in my mind.
Thank you very much.
And, well, thank you. And to have you with me this morning, of course, is a great honor, and I know many people are wondering and would be curious about, to create such an effect that you did in the Wild Bunch, was it an extremely long venture as far as movie making goes? Did it span over many months? Was it done quickly? Was Mr. Holden easy to work with? Can you give us a little background on the movie, Sam?
Yes, the Wild Bunch was very carefully written, very carefully planned, very carefully shot. Even more importantly, it was very carefully cast. Bill Holden and Ernest Borgnine, all the cast, more or less became the Wild Bunch, both on screen and off screen. I'm pleased with the picture. I'm glad that I made it, and I'm glad it turned out the way it did.
Well, as I said to you before, it's been one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, it was just played here in Las Vegas on television. I don't think it was our station, but one of the stations, and I remember seeing it. So when I saw Nick last week at the rodeo, and he mentioned the name Sam Peckinpah, immediately I again thought of the Wild Bunch. But were the characters, Mr. Holden, Mr. Borgnine, and some of the other actors as the Wild Bunch, were they personally handpicked by you, or were you in with the casting director on deciding that particular group? How was the cast chosen?
The cast was chosen with Ken Hyman, who was the president of Warner Bros. At the time. He loved the script. The producer, Phil Feldman, who was enthusiastic at that time, and myself. And they were certainly handpicked.
It's a brilliant group of men, and I think it had to be one of William Holden's finest pictures. I don't know if he ever said that or felt that, but I would think it would have to be.
He was very proud.
Was he really? That's marvelous. Is it, by your standards, one of your finest films?
Yes, I would say so.
Are there others you feel are better or equal?
Well, I'm asked that question many times of my favorite film that I made. I thought Deep Throat was possibly the most popular of the films that I made.
Well, other than that one, that one didn't really stand out in my mind as much as your others. Can we talk about Straw Dogs?
Surely.
The effect you created with that was every bit as great as the Wild Bunch. I don't know how you are able to capture this magic that when you leave the theater, you've really been entertained. You've spent your money and you got your entire money's worth, and there are very few movies that that happens. It must have been just as involved as far as the length of time it took to make it.
Yes, it was. I was fortunate to be working, as I said, in Wild Bunch I was working with Ken Hyman, and in Straw Dogs I had the producer Martin Baum behind me, and I had great talent around me, which is always the secret of any successful picture as far as I'm concerned. I think the auteur theory of directing is nonsense. I beg, borrow, and steal any kind of talent I can get.
Amazing, Sam. I don't know what's happening in the film industry today, or since Wild Bunch or Straw Dogs. I'm picking on those two movies. You've done many more greats. I have no idea what's happening in the film industry. I don't particularly see outstanding films being released every day of the year. Do you know what basically is happening in Hollywood with the industry, the film industry in general?
I don't think I'm an authority on the subject. It seems to be a lot of people running in many directions, most of which are wrong. I don't enjoy the films I'm seeing, and
I don't either.
I find them dull. The last one that I made has been chopped up by the producers to the point of where I find it hard to understand what it was about.
Well, which one is that, Sam?
That was the Osherman Weekend. Had a fine cast. The beginnings of a good story, but
Was that in the editing room where that takes place?
no, that was after I turned the picture over to the producers.
And they started working on it.
They all have their own ideas how a scene should play, evidently.
That's difficult to imagine after you have created a scene that you wanted, right?
It really is, particularly after the Wild Bunch, in its first release, the first 6 weeks release, was my cut, and Straw Dogs was my cut, as was Getaway, except for the music, which Steve had new music done, and quite well, I think, even though Jerry Fielding's music was excellent. So it's always surprising when two out-of-work used car salesmen, such as Panzer Davis, beg, borrow, or steal money and don't pay it and still manage to get a picture done.
Yeah. Is it possible, Sam, when you go into a movie with your contract that you sign with the motion picture company, to get certain stipulations in writing the way you want it and have it go that way totally, or does it still slip out of your hands sometimes?
It certainly slips out of your hands. I'm not only going to be in arbitration with Panzer Davis, but there'll be at least a dozen lawsuits that I know of. But it's a calculated risk to producers of their ilk.
I understand. As far as the future is concerned, what Nick just said about this particular venture sounds very, very interesting, maybe something that you're personally interested in. Are you here mainly because of the poker tournament? Does it interest
I was
you?
coming back from Mexico. When I got back, I heard that Benny had been ill, and so I came up to say hello. We've been good friends for many years, and it so happened that the series of poker, the World Series, was going on, and Benny was feeling great. So we started talking, and this gentleman and myself decided we would make a Western right around Mr. Behnen and right around that World Series of Poker.
Is making a movie anything like gambling, playing poker, Sam?
Well, I think the stakes are a little heavier.
I can believe
You can't drop out when you're...
Are you a poker player?
Yes. When I had money, people would fly me into games, too.
Are you considered among your peers pretty good?
Superb.
That's what I like that. That's confidence.
I lose with such aplomb.
Well, we had a good time playing poker yesterday.
Yes.
It worked out okay?
Yeah.
Yes, it did. It worked out fine. I lasted 2 hands in one game and 1 in the other.
Oh, how interesting. Well, we'll have to come back and talk some more, Sam. And Nick, I want to get into a little bit more about the company, if I may. So, gentlemen, don't go away. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back after this word. I'm visiting with the distinguished Sam Peckinpah, Mr. Nick Behnen. And before I turn to you, Nick, I just was curious, Sam, if you actually had entered the World Series of Poker.
Yes, I think I did indirectly. I was staying at the Nugget because I couldn't get into the Horseshoe. It was overbooked, evidently. Marvelous place to stay, by the way, too. Steve Wynn has taken very good care of me and everybody else. So it was a satellite game that I entered.
Oh.
And I'd never played this particular kind of poker before, but with my skills, I knew that I could jump right in.
Are you still with it?
No, I played one hand, and I lost with a full house.
Gee, man, you lost with a full house?
Yes.
Wow.
I think I was beaten with an ace high.
Gee
Now,
whiz.
how that works out, I haven't figured out yet, but
We're still talking about it.
I would be too.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. But
Well, that's good. Nick, we spoke briefly about the concept of the movie dealing with gaming, and I know of your relation with Benny Binion. Is the story, does Benny have a part to play in the movie?
Well, no, doesn't have a part to play in the movie, but he's shared a wealth of information with us about some of the legendary characters of the past, such as George Sadlow. And George Sadlow had a casino in El Paso, or actually was in Juarez, and during the Revolution, and he had a partner by the name of Pancho Villa.
Wow.
And when Benny was a young man, he remembers going there, and he, of course, met Sadlow. And the ironic thing about it is that Sadlow came out to Nevada in the latter part of his life, and he worked for Benny as a pit boss when he was 98 years old.
Oh my goodness.
George was a great man, and he truly loved Benny Binion. Those type of stories we have access to and the privilege of listening to, and
It sounds
these
absolutely...
are stories that you can't get.
Yeah.
but as you see, these stories all lead in from one to another, but the central theme is Benny Binion leading up to the final poker game.
Wow. Sam, is it done in a documentary style, or there'll be actual, or is it in a regular motion picture style of movie?
I was once told, don't name the baby till it's born.
Well,
That's right.
Whatever you choose, I know it's going to be the best. Has this been something in the workings for a while, Nick? Have you and Sam been thinking about this?
Yes, for 4 years, Sam, because of one commitment or another, didn't have the time to devote to it, and we felt maybe this was the time to marshal our forces. And
I'm delighted. I really am. Yes, I'm glad to be in Nevada. I used to live outside of Ely, and my home is in Montana now. But I've been in Los Angeles long enough. So.
Yeah. You look like the West, Sam. You have that sort of a rugged feel about you, which maybe
It's
is...
like a prairie chip.
he's very rugged, I'll tell you.
You know, also what I was thinking, Sam, maybe this is, I know there are many independent film companies and producers, and maybe this is the direction Hollywood is going, or the motion picture industry. Maybe that's the only way the artist can put his painting or his movie on the screen without it being touched. Maybe it has to be an independent film company, which is essentially what you two
I
are.
certainly don't mind any work that I do being touched if somebody can make it better. But well poisoners I take a dim view of. And my most successful films, people left them alone.
And that's what we wanted to do, Dennis. We wanted to make a Peckinpah film, and about a subject that he's totally familiar with.
And I'm very fond of the old man. He's
I didn't realize, Sam, you had been friends with Benny
yes,
for so
since
long.
even before Cable Hogue.
Well, he must have a wealth of, I mean, just getting everything from him, information, stories, tales, it would be unending. He probably has about 10 movies in his head if anybody could get them all out. And I can't think of a better man to do it than you, Sam. It's got to be.
Well, I'm going to give it a try. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's going to be great entertainment.
Sounds fabulous. Nick, the tournament that's going on now at the Horseshoe, it's needless to say, it's bigger than and better than ever before, right? I keep hearing so much
the
about
tournament
it.
gets bigger every year, and so many people come from all over the world to participate. It's remarkable that, well, the last 3 or 4 years, the Irish have been coming from Ireland, and people from South Africa. And,
You know something else, Nick, which is so amazing about that? It doesn't make any difference what the economy is doing in the United States or abroad or over the world. The gambler is there. You know, that poker player, there seems to be his courage or his excitement for the game, nothing gets in his way. And I understand on this one was a $10,000 entry?
it's a $10,000 buy-in, that's correct.
Did I get you?
No, I did not. I was in a satellite game.
I thought so, yeah.
$100, which is
Okay. That's enough, right, Sam?
yes.
But anyway, for $10,000, the best are coming into those games, right? And the best are going out.
That's true. And like I said, every community in the United States and other places, of course, have their top poker players, and they send a representative out here, and he's liable to take the money home if he can make those hands stand up.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be exciting.
Oh, it's really exciting, man. You should come down and visit with us.
I guarantee I'm going to. May I ask also, while I have you here, Nick, Benny is doing good.
Yes, he is.
Very, very
He's
well.
doing very well.
Glad to hear it. I bet getting you and Benny together, Sam, that must really be something.
Well, I certainly enjoy it. I've always enjoyed his company and the whole family, and that's the big plus. And it's very exciting to me. And I think that's going to be the name of the picture. It's going to be an exciting film.
Sam, thank you very much, sir, for your time.
My pleasure.
I really do appreciate